Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. As always, my name is Matthew, and I have the pleasure today of being joined by Mr. Mikael Kågebäck, who is the CTO at Sleep Cycle. Mikael, how are you today, and did I get your name right?
Very good, thank you. Well, it was close. It's not easy with Scandinavian names. Mikael Kågebäck. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you don't mind, let's start off. If you can tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes, I'm the CTO of Sleep Cycle, which is an app developer that develops an app for tracking your sleep and to find the optimal time to wake you up so you feel refreshed. As the CTO, I'm in charge of the engineering organization, the tech strategy. So I try to align the tech strategy with our product vision, really. That's what I'm doing. My background, I have a long background in software. I started in software, but the last 10 years, so a decade now, I've been doing machine learning, which is, if you think about it, it's pretty long. It's, let's say, it's long before it was cool with machine learning. I started out. The last 5 years, approximately, I've been at Sleep Cycle. Before that, I did a PhD in machine learning at Chalmers University, also here in Gothenburg, Sweden. And it was fun because when I started that, and that was 10 years ago, no one were interested. Like this was, Chalmers is the top university for technical university in Sweden, but still, they didn't really know about this type of machine learning, the deep learning or artificial neural network type of machine learning. It was not really on the radar. And towards the end of those 5 years at Chalmers, we had like 400 people coming to our seminars, and everything was completely crazy. So it was a fun journey to do that. And then I joined Sleep Cycle as a research engineer. I did a lot of audio event detection that we use to do our sleep analysis. And approximately 4 years ago, I became the CTO. And together with the rest of the management team, we grew the company, made it a little bit more mature. So we were able to go public with the company around 2021. And then, well, from there, we're just trying to build more and more interesting tech into the platform.
That's fantastic. And tell me, so you had an interesting start then. There's a few things we can unpack. You said it wasn't so popular when you started. Did you ever expect your journey to go on the path that it did? Or were there things that happened that were a bit of a surprise and you thought, oh, here's an opportunity. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to work there. How did that turn out?
So that's a good question. So in my background, I really, when I did my bachelor's, which was a lot earlier, I already then knew that I was interested in doing research. I wanted to do that someday, and I wanted to do, or I thought it was a very interesting subject with AI. But that was long before I knew what machine learning was. And then I worked in software for a number of years. Really, what made me interested in the new wave of machine learning and AI was the results that came from the groups of Hinton and Jean LeCun and those around deep learning. So I could really see something happening. But that was in Canada and in the States, not in Sweden. But so when I saw that, I decided to do a master's. So I did a master's in engineering physics, and then I did my PhD. But that was really based on what happened abroad, primarily, I would say, in the States. Sweden, not so much.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about Sleep Cycle. So you spoke about using machine learning to help you. You said to wake up at the right time. What is the idea behind this? Give us an overview of how it works and what your role is in the development here.
So maybe I should take you back. That's a very good question. I think we should start at the beginning where we started. That was about 15 years ago. So that was long before I joined the company, but I know, or he's an acquaintance of mine, the founder, Mikael Kågebäck. So I had a lunch with him actually just when he was starting this out. And what they wanted to do back then was really, all right, I want to wake up feeling refreshed. How can I do that? I realized sometimes I wake up and I feel grumpy, and sometimes I feel great. So he had a friend, a Finnish researcher, in sleep researcher, and they collaborated to see if they could find a solution to kind of pinpoint that time. So back then, what we did was use the accelerometer in the phone to detect movements. And based on those movements, you were able to discern a certain time in a 30-minute window when you are in light sleep. And this worked really, really well. So it worked so well that the company just took off. So they launched that app, and I remember he's told me that he went on some vacation and he didn't really think anything would happen. Then when he came back, they had loads of downloads. So from there, they were able to kind of organically grow the company towards where we are today. Then around 2015, we changed tracks from using the accelerometer. The problem with the accelerometer is that it's in your bed, or it had to be in your bed. I mean, you had to have the phone in your bed, and not everyone wants that. So then we switched track to an audio-based solution. And I think maybe now I'm starting to answer your question. So what are the challenges and reasons that we went that route? Well, so first off, by doing audio event detection instead, you can have your phone on your nightstand. So that's one thing. But I think the other one that is maybe perhaps a bit more subtle is, well, if you think about it, all animals, or not all, but most animals have hearing. And there's a reason for that. Audio is such a powerful signal for doing different things. So with that, in the beginning, all we did was detect movements. And that's fine. That worked. That was enough to do sleep analysis, or some kind of sleep analysis. But then we realized we could detect snoring, which was immensely popular. So now all of a sudden we can tell you how much you were snoring, and also let people listen to their snores during the night. And a lot of people like that. And then the next level after that was really, okay, so what else can we do? Right. So now, as it is today, we can actually track a number of different things. We can track your breathing completely, which is pretty amazing. I think we're the only product on the market that can do this. We can track your breathing rate throughout the night and use your breathing signal to do a much more accurate sleep tracking as well. And then we can do fun things. So, for instance, we can track your if you talk in your sleep. Then you can listen to that in the morning, because we can detect it and record it. And for me, I don't talk much in my sleep, to be honest. But what I do have is a daughter, and it's amazing, because when she comes in the middle of the night and says something crazy, then I have that in the morning as a present that I can listen to. That's really fun.
You changed the way that you were analyzing these patterns, and this is then what you're working with now with the sound analysis. Are you still using the other systems in the phone? Are you collaborating with them?
It's actually more accurate to detect even movements with audio than it is with accelerometer, which is a bit intuitive, I guess. But we get better scores when we compare to gold standard methods.
That's fantastic.
I'm not sure why, but yeah. So that's very accurate, and we don't need it. But however, we do use movement when if you use an Apple Watch or a Samsung Watch or something in that regard, then we can use the movement from that watch, because that's personal to you. So you're not picking up the movement of your spouse, which is good. So that's actually useful.
You mentioned something about being the only product on the market using that sort of thing at the moment. Tell us a little bit, if you can. What is the market like? Is it quite competitive? Do you have strong competition? How do you guys stay relevant? Because obviously with all the advancements that are going on with AI and machine learning and that sort of stuff, you've got to keep your finger on the pulse. And to stay ahead and to stay relevant, it must be quite a job.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I think you need to do two things. So I can kind of connect you back now to my PhD days. When we started out, it was already crazy. But towards the end, if you had an idea, you had to publish within a week. Otherwise, someone else would publish. So what you need to do, and we need to do the same thing here, is you need to find your niche where you're really good. So for AI in general, with language models now and with images is even more so. The competitive landscape is, it's crazy. In audio, it's less so. Not so many that are really good at audio. It's a much more niche. And then when it comes to audio and, let's say sleep audio, so in the environment of someone sleeping, this is where we are the experts, I would say, in the world. It's a small niche of a niche. That's how we can be competitive there. When it comes to competitors, you can think about it in two ways. You have different ways of measuring sleep. Though the good competitors here are things like Apple themselves, they can track sleep, or Samsung, and also you have the rings from Finland, the Aura rings, and many others. But what's in common with all of those is that they're hardware based. So you need to have something, you need to wear something, or you need to have something installed in your bed to be able to use it. While our solution is much more accessible, of course, because all you need is a smartphone, and everyone has a smartphone. So that's a good thing with it. We also have some competitors that actually do apps, but it's interesting if you look at the usage. So we have some competitors that get downloaded a lot and makes a lot of money, but they are not used even closely to what our app is. So we actually have much higher daily active usage in Sleep Cycle, because it's a very sticky product. It works over time, while the other product seems to be more copies of Sleep Cycle and doesn't really work well. So people download it, but they only use it once or twice, I guess.
Nice, that's interesting. And so obviously staying, as you were saying in the beginning there, staying relevant, very important at the end of the day. To run something like this, obviously you've got to be surrounded by the right kind of people. You're onto an amazing product that's helping people with, what's becoming a more common issue these days, getting regular sleep, getting the right amounts of sleep, managing a totally different world that we were 20 years ago. And so to keep this afloat, you've got to be surrounded by the right people. Can you tell us a bit about your team, about working with your team? What sort of characteristics and values does the company have to maintaining people around you?
So I think there's two parts to this. The engineering part, but that's only one part. The other thing is we need to also really understand sleep. So I can start there. We have great engineers, of course, and I'll get back to them, but we also employ Mike Radisar, who is a world-renowned researcher in sleep. He's based in Australia, but he works for us full-time. So he's a professor of sleep, or he is a former professor at Adelaide University, and now he works for us, and actually publishes a lot in our name in the area of sleep. So he's a sleep psychologist. And that is super important. So I've installed him into one of our teams, the one that you do the sleep tracking, to make sure that he's part of that. So the kind of the tracking that we do is relevant, and it holds a certain standard. So that's one part of the equation, I guess. The other side is to make sure that you have good engineers, and that's competitive. It is. We have been fortunate. Was somewhat fortunate because I was so early on when it came to machine learning. So in Gothenburg, in that area, I've been able to recruit really good, or we have been able to recruit really good machine learning engineers that work for us. So we actually have one that I can talk about specifically, that he's joining us now in 2 weeks. An amazing researcher, Emil, who's doing reinforcement learning. He joins us now, just finishing his PhD, had a tenure now at Berkeley before coming to us. And it's just amazing to see the things that he can do and how quickly he can do it. And just the speed, I think, is the most important part. And we have a couple of others in the team with software engineers that they're just able to translate an idea into an experiment and run that experiment on a huge scale really quickly. And if you can do that, if you can have a turnaround time in just weeks, then you're able to do so much more projects than if you have these long projects that you have to plan and design and so on. So I think that's really important as well. Having people that kind of they're able to have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit and be quick. But still, you need to be founded in research. You need to have people that know what's going to help people to actually sleep better, not just create a cool gadget.
What sort of helpful features have you developed, along with your sleep psychologist, to help people in the process of actually getting there?
Several different things, all the way from just spreading knowledge. So we have a really fun initiative. I think it's going to launch it in just a few weeks, I think. I don't want to spoil anything, though.
Oh, yes, no doubt.
So I can't give an exact date. But no, I will tell you what it is. So it's called Ask Dr. Mike. So it's actually a format. We've used that before in a collaboration with a company called WellHub in Brazil. So where our customers get to ask questions, and then it's like a format where you're able to join that as a podcast or as a web cast, I guess. And then he answers those questions, and you can have some, he gives some tips and tricks on how to solve your sleep problems online for an
Fantastic.
hour. So that's something that has been really well received when we did it for WellHub, and we're now going to do it for all our customers, really. So that's one way. Except for that, we have a number of features. So I think the main thing, if you want to change one thing about your sleep that has a huge impact on your health, then that's your sleep regularity. Everything else kind of falls into place if you just make sure, and it's not easy, it sounds easy, but make sure to go to bed same time, wake up the same time, always, including weekends. So if you can do that, it's both much easier to fall asleep because your body learns to fall asleep, and it has been shown that this has connections to cardiovascular health. So it's actually really important for your health in general to do this, and for you to kind of help you into that, we have something called Sleep Goal, where we will give you notifications to tell you, okay, so now it's time to get ready to go to bed, and now it's time to go to bed, and we also wake you up at the right time to kind of nudge you towards a regular sleep routine, and then you can follow up and you can see your sleep regularity score and sleep cycle to make sure that you're doing it right.
I like
so that's another one.
I'd need to have a password on mine and give the password to like a random stranger walking past the street, because I'm very guilty of the phone, set the dimmer for 10 p.m. and at 10 p.m. I'm like, oh, add 15 minutes, add 20 minutes. Terrible. From a more like sort of personal point of view, if I were to ask you, for youngsters perhaps starting out in machine learning, getting into that side of development, software development, and that, is there any advice now that you've done it, you've been through that system, you're now working on something incredible? If I was a youngster coming into the industry and I asked you for a word of advice, what would you say to me who's just starting out now?
So it depends a little bit on your background, I would say. If you have a solid background in software, then then you need to start thinking in a different way. But if you, as you said now, coming in from machine learning, then what you really need to do, I think the number one thing is, don't go to an employer and expect to only train neural networks based on some data that you get handed. That's not how it works. There's really few jobs in the market for designing a new machine learning architecture or doing things like that. That's not really what's it about. It is going to be a lot about how to be able to get this into a product. So I can give you an example. Let's say our product. All right. So what we do is that we analyze audio, right? So what that means, we analyze for about more than 1 million users, 8 hours of audio every night, right? So I mean, it turns out we analyze about 75 terabytes. So that's similar to what you train ChatGPT on, and the big, large language models that are trained on supposedly all human knowledge, right? We need to process that every 10 minutes in 24 hours, and we are going to process about 1 millennia of audio. So that's the scale, right? So how do you do that? I I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this. I mean, if you do this naively and we just, all right, we'll pipe the audio to us and then, do the analysis here, that would be complete. It wouldn't work. It's like 6 petabytes of audio that we need to transfer. So you have to think about how to do this. So for us, what we have done, we do everything locally. Of course, a good side effect of that is that it's completely private. So you do all your audio analysis on your phone, so the audio never leaves your phone, which is pretty great, I think. But it also means that now we have this huge, I mean, you can think about it as a compute cluster, massively parallel around the world that does this compute for us. And that's how you make it work. But of course, there's a large infrastructure around this, how we collect data in a privacy compliant way, how we annotate that data, how we get that into databases, how we then train models based on that data, because that's something that we need to do at our side, and that's it's really, really difficult to get high performance in your training. It's the same there. Just reading the data from a disk takes time. So the throughput, getting that through, it's a very tricky engineering problem. And then, of course, creating new models, deploying those on this compute clusters or phones, right? And then having a quick turnaround time so that you can deploy new models, understand where it fails and where it succeeds, and get that back. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of how
it's immense,
what kind of engineering it is, right? So that's really that's where the most of the work is. Yeah. You need to understand your machine learning. You need to understand what it means to optimize a function instead of writing code. So that you need that, but you also need to write a lot of code.
Absolutely. So there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. I'm going to finish off for you. How do you sleep at night?
I sleep really well, actually. So I did do that, which I told you should do. I made sure to kind of, okay, so now I have an alarm in the weekends. And I'm not going to say that this is only because of that, but for me, that was a transformative. So first of all, I much easier to fall asleep. Secondly, I lost a lot of weight for maybe not just because of that, because I also worked out and ate less. But the fact is, when you stay up late in the in the weekends, you tend to have less healthy habits, I guess. So for me, that was great. And now I have no real sleep problems. So it's
fantastic. So you're a testament to what we've spoken about, which is great. Mikael, before I let you go, is there anything that maybe you'd like to tell our viewers, how they can get hold of the software, what they should look into, any steps that they can take?
Absolutely. So it's very easy to get hold of the software. All you need to do is search for Sleep Cycle in App Store or in Google Play or a Huawei store if you have a Huawei phone, and download. That's all you need to know, really.
Good. So I'm going to let you go there. It's been a pleasure chatting to you today. A lot of useful insights and a lot of interesting information. You're talking about millennia's worth of data and those added times. The numbers blow my mind. So thank you for chatting with us, and we'll be keeping our eye on you and wishing you the best for the future.